Welcome everyone to this new episode of the PrivacyRules Privacyespresso series where we discuss about the latest and trending news on privacy, data protection, and all the matters related to technologies from all over the world. As you know, we always invite experts and speakers from the various countries where PrivacyRules is active. Today with me, I have Magdalena Kogut-Czarkowska from the law firm Timelex based in Belgium. Magdalena is an expert, of course, in privacy and data protection, and as all the experts in Timelex do, she is specialized in particular for what concerns health sector and on the topic of the day, that is the European health data space regulation. That is something that was introduced in 2022 and that had some developments that we want to discuss about together with Magdalena today. So first of all, Magdalena, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be here.
Thanks. It's our pleasure, Magdalena, and thanks for coming. I think that, I would like to immediately start in speaking about the topic of the day, that is this European Health Data Space Regulation, also called or known as EHDS. What's the current status? Can you give us an update on, the path and the status that we have at the moment?
Sure. So it is a proposal of European Health Data Space Regulation. So it's an EU-wide regulation that was introduced in 2022 by the European Commission. And it has taken some time for this proposal to be reviewed and adjusted by the co-legislators, and those are the Council and the European Parliament. There were a lot of heated discussions on some of the topics, but it seems that there is a compromise. The text that was agreed between these co-legislators has now been released. So now there are a few more formalities to pending, and we are expecting that this act will be published in autumn. So it will be then a binding law in the EU.
Oh, that sounds very interesting whenever we speak about binding laws. In this regard, let us know a bit more about it. Which are the goals, which is the scope of this regulation?
Yeah, so it is quite a comprehensive regulation. So it deals with various aspects of health data processing. So to summarize or try to summarize the goals of it, I would say that there are two main goals. The first one is about empowering the patients and giving them more options and more control over their health data when they are seeking treatment at medical centers. So, for example, that their access to their own health data is immediate, that they can go to a different health services provider and provide this new hospital or new doctor with their own hospital records from another place. So in that way, it enhances the rights that the patients already have under GDPR, but sort of brings them up a notch, you might say. And the second goal, which is more relevant, I would say, for the industry, for the researchers, also for public authorities, is building a strong legal framework around the ability to access health data for other purposes, for research, for public policy, for innovation. And the laws around these topics have been very much fragmented between the different member states. So the European health data space is supposed to put one framework for all of EU and enable that access, but still preserving the privacy of the patients and putting in strong safeguards so that the fundamental rights will be respected.
That sounds incredibly interesting. Thanks a lot, Magdalena. In particular, the fact that there is obviously the need to find and to strike a balance between the privacy and other data of patients and people, but on the other side, developing relevant activities like the one related to health, which might I suspect have been extremely complex. So in this regard, this brings me to my next question, that is, which have been the changes, the most relevant changes that you have seen as introduced during this legislative process from the beginning to now?
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes, and one of them actually pertains to this need to strike the balance between the rights of the patients and the power that the patient should have over the use of their data. And the needs of the scientific community. So the scientific community needs access to rich and complete data sets. So there is a tension between those two goals, and much of the discussions have been around how to find the best solution. So some have claimed that the access to data should be sort of presumed so that within the safeguards that the European health data space offers, all of the health data that the patients have or that the hospitals have would be able to be reused. That was one of the sort of positions that was proposed initially. And then some other, especially patient advocate groups, they've argued that, well, the patients should be in position to at least know and control for what purpose their data is used. So the compromise text that we have, that has been published a couple of months ago, shows indeed a carefully crafted balance between those two. So the default position is that if you're a patient in the EU, your data can be reused for scientific purposes, for example, or for policy purposes, but the member states have to give the patients the ability to opt out of the system. So one might object to that reuse. But on top of that, there will be certain circumstances where the patient's decision to object will be overridden. So if there is a public emergency, for example, then that access for data by the public authorities to evaluate how to best tackle that emergency would be given to them. So that was one of the most, I would say, interesting and valid points to balance the rights of the patients and the industry and the scientists in the health sector. Some other points were, for example, including enforcement measures, strong enforcement measures in the regulation. The first proposal didn't really have teeth, and there was a bit of skepticism whether its rules will be followed if there are no fines or no other strong measures. So this was changed in the current text, and now we have indeed GDPR level fines, so 10 million euros or 20 million euros or a percentage of an annual turnover in case the data holders do not comply, and if the data users, of course, breach their obligations under the European Health Data Space Act. So there has been some significant change in that. There has also been some changes and fine-tuning of the whole process of obtaining data for scientific research and for innovation. So the mechanism remains quite the same in the proposal, so that the central piece of this framework would be the European health data access bodies that will be established in each member state. So these health data access bodies will have an overview of where the data sets of different hospitals and research centers and manufacturers are available. They will have a catalog of data, if you will. And a researcher or somebody who is seeking access to data can access that catalog and contact the health data access body with an application to obtain a data permit. And this request will be evaluated under very strict criteria. And if it is granted, then the health data access body will turn to the data holder, collect data from them, and put it in a secure processing environment. So in a secure infrastructure that will enable the researcher to do research, but won't allow the researcher or the company that is doing some innovation activities to actually download the data and copy it. So that remains largely the same. However, the concern with this process is that a lot of work is put on the health data access body, so that this may get there will be a bottleneck when the health data access body gets a lot of these requests. So the solution that was introduced in the compromise text is that there could be trusted health data holders, so entities or institutions appointed in each member state that help the health data access body evaluate the request and issue a recommendation. So those are some of the changes. We probably don't have that much time to go into detail in other ones, but indeed it has been quite an update of the proposal through these 2 years.
Thank you, Magdalena. It's clear that has been a quite difficult path, meaning a lot of things to be considered and discussed. Just to clarify, I didn't get if the enforcement capability will go to those EU bodies or will remain on the data protection authorities, just to make sure that this is clear.
Both, actually. There will be new authorities that can enforce it, but infringements of health data, the processing of health data, the infringements under GDPR will be sanctioned by the data protection authorities. So yeah, they're depending on what kind of infringement occurs, a different authority might be empowered to investigate it and fine the infringer.
That's perfectly clear now. Thanks a lot for this. And looking at the future, there have been a lot of changes now. Things seems to be a bit settled down. What can we expect next in relation to this?
So a lot of work has been put into fine-tuning the text, and as I said, it's the compromise text is ready, but it still needs to be published by the official journal to become officially a law. So we are expecting that this will happen in a few months in autumn. But then there will be some time needed to actually ensure infrastructure for this data space to function, to appoint health data access bodies that are so crucial to this system, to allow hospitals to adjust their electronic health records to new requirements, because as you might imagine, for all of this to function, there has to be some level of harmonization between the different electronic health record systems held by hospitals, for example. So there will be, depending on the type of obligation that is under this regulation, it will take some years, even up to 10 years, for it to come into effect. But that doesn't mean that we are just waiting in vain, because a lot of work is now being done to prepare for this infrastructure. There are pilot projects that will test whether this works. And also the entire health sector, and by that I mean hospitals, but also innovation centers, wellness app developers, medical device producers should look closely at this new regulation and see what, not only for the obligations that they might be under, which of course is the more scary part, but also for the opportunities that this may bring to them. So it is quite exciting that the act has been agreed, and we'll see how slowly it comes into force and how it actually starts to function within the EU.
Very interesting. Thanks a lot, Magdalena. We are running out of our time, but this was very clear. Of course, it's also clear that the framework we are discussing is very complex. So companies should start, looking at it and knowing it as soon as possible in order to be ready, even if in 10 years there is already a lot of processes to be taken in order to align with the requirements. And as you were saying, use it as an asset more than just something to comply with. I'd also like to thank our listeners for being with us today, and I look forward to our next meeting with our next Privacy Espresso. Thanks again, Magdalena.
Thank you, Alessandro. See you.